All right, Zach, you've got the review of your golf swing, a little comparison to some guys that are really, really good ball strikers, and just some of the differences of what's going on, face to face, down the line, exactly how we're moving. Definitely a big thing for you is going to be backswing pivot, backswing structure. Looks like in downswing, you can kind of figure stuff out from more or less any backswing. Again, I think it looks like you're a pretty athletic guy, so I don't think you're going to have too much problem getting the body to do some different stuff in backswing and then being able to go straight in and react to where that club is and hit some really nice shots. We're going to go through face on first, and then that's going to be the big meat of what we need to work on, of how we're actually moving, how the body rotates, certain parts of the body, how they bend and tilt to get us a lot more centered, a lot more rotated, and keep our height. The benefit of that in terms of what the club is going to do is that when we start turning and tilting properly, we can have the appropriate amount of depth of the hands, arms, and club, and the club face under control, so that in downswing, we're not in a compromised position trying to hit a golf ball while trying to manipulate loft and face incorrectly. We can get you better backswing structure that makes the workload in downswing way lighter. Once we've got this thing structured where it needs to be, club face is already closed and de-lofted, your downswing basically we learn to push and turn properly at the right times, but really you get to go as hard as you want to go and not lose control. So the first thing we want to talk about is sort of the body bends and tilts. So we're going to start with just an anatomically neutral position and talk about what setup is and what backswing is. So in this position, I'm not rotated at all, I'm not bent forward or back, and I'm not tilted left or right. So we look at what the golf swing is. At address, okay, all we're doing, again, not tilted forward, not back, not rotated, not bending. At address, all we should be having, more or less, is a little bit of forward bend or flexion in the torso. So 2D view, this is me standing straight up and down, and I'm addressing my golf ball. Boom, I've got a little bit of forward flexion between the torso and the pelvis, right? So boom, down a little bit. Pelvis tilts a little bit, upper body's down a little bit. Now to get to a correct backswing versus how you're getting to end the backswing, you've got, boom, set up, there's forward flexion. Right now in your backswing, why you go down and away from the ball is actually really simple. So we've created some amount of flexion in setup. When you're making your backswing, you're maintaining that flexion and trying to turn. So as we do that, you can see if I stay bent over and turn, my head is going to drift away from the target, stay low, I'm going to hit the end of mobility, and then to try and get some power for downswing, I'm going to kind of squat into that right leg. What I see is this left one, exactly what we see in your picture. This left femur is still kicked out because we never actually really rotated the lower body. We just rotated the upper body down into that right leg. From that position, okay, it's really hard for me to have my arms behind me and the club behind me. So they end up just shooting outward and rolling up, which is exactly what we get. We get a lead arm that's too outward. We get a lead shoulder, okay, that is too internally rotated, which means the face is going to be open and lofted. That's our current pattern, okay? We've stayed in flexion, we've turned, we've squatted into that right leg, the arm shoots up and rolls. That's our pattern right now. What we actually see good golfers do, set up, forward flexion, same as you. If we break down what the body does in backswing into all three pieces in 3D, because we live in a 3D world, correct backswings, we stand up, we rotate, now I'm centered, and we tilt to the left a little bit. So the two people that I showed you, compared you to like a Tiger and a Charles Howe, that's what they look like. The standing up piece means that as they turn, their head isn't shooting back away from the target. If it does, it's because the entire pressure shift was a little bit lateral, not because they stayed bent over and spun around. Okay, so there's up, rotate, tilt. Now I haven't really lost much of my level, maybe a little bit. We'll see most guys go down just a smidge in backswing, but certainly not a ton down and away. So the first piece of practice is just getting a little coordination for what does that feel like as I'm moving. So we start at setup, We break it into 3 pieces. Up. Try and turn 90 for me, so that's pretty easy. The club across the shoulders is flat and turn 90 degrees. And then I tilt it down. So the pelvis tilts a little bit, the shoulders tilt a little bit. What you're definitely going to start feeling is more pressure in that lead foot. Okay, instead of staying in flexion and circling down onto this right foot, where we can almost pick this guy up and balance. Okay, then think about what downswing is. Well, I got to jump up out of the way and throw the club. That's your jump and that's your high lofted shot. Okay, the more we could go up, turn, the turn piece, watch that, up, turn, now all of a sudden my grip is behind me. There's my tilt, now it's up and behind me with a closed face. Now all downswing is, I got it de-lofted, I got it behind me. I can smash golf balls that are maybe little push draws because the club face is de-lofted in that scenario. When I went up, turn 90, and tilt, okay, now in downswing, because the arms and the club are behind me, I get to rotate. Club is massively de-lofted late in downswing, and then my speed and how I keep it de-lofted, I get to start pushing up through the hip, not jump up to make room for the scoop, okay? So piece 1 in changing how your body moves and tilts. Quick little recap. They're set up, backswings are up, turn, tilt. That's how we stay centered. That's how we don't lose our height, okay? That one I think is pretty easy. So what you can do on the range or when you're practicing, right? If you got like an old shaft, an old driver shaft, you can put an alignment stick in the grip of it sticking out, something long enough to go on the ground and still reach sort of the side of your head. What you're going to do is at setup, you're going to have something just kind of touching your left ear, just as a reference point, and you're going to want to start making backswings where you're going to feel like you're staying tall and the head is staying on that noodle. Okay? Because what happens now, as you stay in flexion and try and turn, we move down and away. You can hit golf balls like this. I'm not going to hit one that way because that's where my TVs are. But it would literally be, all right, backswing. Okay, and you're feeling I've still got my head forward, I've gone up. We look at the structure of the legs that we talked about. From the down the line view, you start encouraging this inward movement of the arms and club behind you with a closed, de-lofted club face. You know what you do for there? Now we just start chipping some of these golf balls feeling like we're staying on this noodle. Now we've created a system to where through the entire swing, backswing, I went up, rotated, and tilted. That's not a lot of lateral movement of the head. And then in downswing, we're essentially unwinding those things. So there's not a ton of lateral displacement of the head when we're actually rotating, standing up and tilting, and then unwinding that for downswing. That's the biggest thing you got going is in backswing. I think there's a lot of players that are intentionally preventing some rotation of lower body. It's been horrible instruction for years. It's one of the most detrimental things to good golf is that if you're preventing this from rotating and you're trying to stay in posture, okay? Once I'm bent over and this is my posture and I'm not gonna let this rotate, the only thing I've got is that. And I don't see any good golfers doing that, right? 3-dimensionally, we move all different directions to make it maybe look like my posture didn't change, but I went up, rotated, and tilted to maintain what might look like I maintained posture in backswing. Most good golfers don't. You're going to actually see a little change in posture for a lot of reasons. But the whole stay in posture thing, one of the worst things you can try and do. So if there is an attempt to prevent lower body rotation or to stay in posture, we got to throw those out immediately. That's the first piece that's got to go. Because if we can start getting backswings that allow us to rotate, tilt, and turn, now it's really easy. Instead of being here in backswing, I didn't have to do anything with my hands and arms to get them deep enough and actually close the club face to the forearm. That's piece 1. That's what's got to happen. So that's how we move properly in terms of our tilts and our rotations. What we should be encouraging to happen, and what the goal is that as my body moves that way, instead of my arms going here for backswing, I start seeing them work behind me The shaft's probably going to feel a little more vertical because we're not arm out here laid off. We're arm back. And for that club face to be de-lofted, it's going to feel like that shaft's a little bit more vertical. So again, once you're hitting some of those chip shafts with maybe the noodle or something on the side of your head, we're looking for the hand path inward, the depth of the arms, and again, top of backswing, the reference point. Draw a line straight down from the butt of the grip. We'd love to see that somewhere in the ballpark of the ankle joint, not the middle of the foot. Once we're there, boom. Downswings become really easy. We're able to just rotate, keep it massively de-lofted, and rotate out of that shot. That's your practice. You've got to get comfortable with what's going to feel like head forward, you lean into the target, arms behind us, and then slowly just start working and rotating into hitting the golf ball from that new position. You got to get a little more coordinated in terms of the movement of how I get to that backswing. But I think once you do that a few times and chip a few out, the athleticism will take over and you'll sort of figure out what's now encouraged to keep it de-lofted as you turn, where it is necessary to jump and throw from that position. So the backswing structure in terms of how the body's going to move and what that's going to allow us to do with the arms and club is going to encourage you to keep it de-lofted and you rotate a little better through downswing. So step one for your golf swing, for you to hit it like a +5 or a professional golfer, we got to get the body turning and tilting the right way. You get that cleaned up in backswing, I think your downswing is going to do a lot of changing without you having to try super hard. So work a ton on getting those arms deeper, getting the club back there, because we're turning and tilting properly. You get that done, you're on the right road, man.